We're talking today about something I think impacts all of us, obviously, as married folks, and that is being an in-law, not an outlaw during the holiday seasons, because there are so many different traditions. Everyone has an opinion about how something should be done, and it's easy, if we're not careful, to begin to take an offense and live in this place of either resenting or bitterness or not appreciating the value of what. So with that, we wanted to share 5 best practices to be able to be a honoring daughter-in-law or son-in-law. I remember when we first met, I always laugh about this with my mama, Greg's mom, because she actually lived in our basement for years.
Well, it was, that sounds weird.
It does sound weird.
The home that we had a full, completely finished basement in it. It had its own entrance and exit and so on and so forth. It was actually super nice. So yes, technically it was a basement, but it was its own separate living quarters and quite nice. So yes, she kind of stayed with us because we had very, very young children, and we really didn't want to take our kids to daycare and such. And so it was a great exchange, whereas we could just take the kids downstairs and she was good to go, and our kids were well loved and taken care of and all that good stuff. And so it worked out really, really good.
Yep. So
back to your story.
Yep. So Mom, if you're listening, I love you. But we always joke about how she came upstairs one time to surprise, and she moved some things around, cleaned my house so well, and when I came home, she did not get the response that she was hoping for. Here she had served, she had cleaned, she had tried her hardest to make sure that I came home to a welcoming house, and instead I took offense to it. I was like, you tell your mother to not go upstairs and not move my stuff around, and boy, I put you in an awkward situation.
No, I mean, it was a fair point on both sides. I mean, sometimes you have to draw the right boundaries, and maybe that's a good thing, is making sure that, we're able to draw the right boundaries in a time where it's not emotional. I think we all grew from that, and I think that the funny thing is that as the years progressed, you're
I certainly changed. I'm like, hey, Mom, you want to come on over? My house needs cleaned.
We need help.
Yeah.
Help!
So I just say all of that is that, there are times where there are awkward conversations or offense that can be taken. I certainly could have handled that a whole lot better. So I thank my mother-in-law for that grace during that season. But we've come to laugh about it. And so as we think about family, I think that what you just said, Greg, is being able to have healthy dialogue. But another great thing is to listen to your in-laws, or as we like to say, our in-loves, to their thoughts. Boy, and I guess that doesn't have to just be like a in-law. It really can be a parent in general.
I was just getting ready to say, honestly, I think that different families struggle with different things. So maybe it's not your in-laws, maybe it's your very own parents. The thing with parents and even immediate family is they know us, and they know all of our dirt, right? All of our imperfections, and they also know who we used to be, right? And so sometimes, they inadvertently put us in a box, or we put them in a box. Yep. And that's already predefined, and we can never get out of it, or we never let them out of it. And so I think that it's good. All of these things that we're talking about, honestly, they apply to our own parents and our own family just as much as they do the in-laws. I would have to say, we're fortunate in that, in reality, we really do.
We like our in-laws.
We like our in-laws, and, we love our parents. But that doesn't mean it's without challenge. I think that all of us have an opportunity to really put the right foot forward and kind of mentally prepare to be together in this holiday season and make memories, not madness, is one of the things we talk about.
Right,
so.
Make memories, not madness. So I'm just thinking about, in our marriage relationship, we talk about discovering one another. We talk about putting our best foot forward. So if this was the first time you were ever meeting your in-laws, you probably would have a different kind of attitude going into it. And so with that, we've also sat in universities, we've sat in long lectures, and we've sat as a student, in a sense, to listen intently, to glean what we could learn. And that doesn't mean that we necessarily agreed with everything that somebody taught, but we listen to see what we could learn from it. And I think if we can come into that kind of relationship with our in-laws in a place of discovery, a place of putting our best foot forward, and we may not take all their advice, but we certainly could give them the respect to listen long enough for their advice.
Yep, don't disagree with that. I completely, wholeheartedly agree. I think that we need the next page because I can't see the next note. Okay. Thanks for hooking me up there, babe.
You got it. You got it.
You know, there's a lot of opportunities again for us to respond in one way or another. But one of the things that Julie and I, we've done a great job, I think, of just trying to be intentional about thinking, what can we give, right?
I love that. Yeah.
And or how can we serve? Is there how can we go rather than
On my phone. Sorry, guys.
is there something that we can bring? Is there something that we can do? And I think that sometimes it's that time of season. It's the giving season, right? But I think sometimes just bringing a gift is a great idea if there is a need, especially
Right.
trying to provide for that need. And all too often, what our parents or even our in-laws really want from us is, sometimes it's tangible, sometimes it's a financial need,
Right.
but a lot of times it's a service that they need done. Is there some way that we can service or do something for them that needs to be done? That sometimes is not only something that I think it's a bonding thing when we're able to do something with them or something for them that maybe needs to be done. Most of us, our parents and in-laws, they're all older than us,
Yeah.
but there's usually opportunities where we can serve. And I think it's just a great idea, again, in this season to remember to be a giver rather than expecting something. So what would you add to that, sweetheart?
Yeah, I was thinking about when Jesus was talking and he was reprimanding the Pharisees. And he said, you see your parents coming to you, and you say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't give to you because I've already given to the church. And I think
Ouch.
about that when it comes to either finances or giving of my time. Sometimes, again, I think maybe the way that it applies to me is it's so easy to maybe look to the outside and make generosity, be generous in giving, being generous in my time, be generous in my respect. But to the members of my own household, that's where it's really tested, and being able to be present and think about them and be just as generous with them and our time. So yeah, that's families forever.
Yeah, look first to how it is maybe that we might be able to meet a need or serve or give to our in-laws, to our parents, even before we reach outside of that, because the rest of that verse basically goes on to explain. You kind of left us hanging there.
Yeah.
Goes on to explain that that we should make darn sure that we're taking care of our family first, right? I mean, that's the essence of what the scripture says.
Yep. All right, so let's move along. Number one is to make sure again that we are honoring, listening. Number two, giving, either financially or in our relationship. And number three, share your admiration of your spouse's characteristics. And maybe it's something like, man, your son's just like you. He is so strong and such a hard worker. He's so dedicated to. Or it could be where you're just saying, wow, one of the things I love about your son, obviously this would be me to your in-laws, but to my in-laws, is how much he has really been intentional to parent our kids. You should be really proud of him. He is always so faithful, so dedicated, so generous. You did a good job, Mom. You did a good job, Dad. And in that, one thing is I'm affirming you. And secondly, I'm affirming them and the deposits that they made in your life to help
Absolutely.
you become who you are.
Absolutely. So the benefit of that is obviously twofold, right? I mean, one, most parents are proud of their kids, right?
Right.
And so to have someone else be proud of, especially the person that abides with them day in and day out, is certainly affirming to most parents. Now, there's some parents who are not so proud of their kids, right? and or maybe they've had a recent tiff or something like that. And so in that case, the benefit, of course, is that it maybe will plant a seed that will begin to shape their thoughts a little bit differently and think, hey, you know what? My kid is not all bad, you
Right.
know, or my kid does have these qualities. And it's, you know, it's just an affirming gesture that I think goes a long
Yeah.
way in making good deposits.
Yep. So you want to do number 4?
Sure, I got to look at the page here. So we took some notes to make sure we didn't get lost. Yeah, don't be rude or complain about them or others in your mind. It's one thing to resist and bite your tongue, and obviously that's really, really important, right?
Right.
Because out of the abundance of the heart,
The mouth speaks.
exactly. So that also tells us, one, not just to be careful about what it is that we're saying, but that scripture also reminds us to be careful about what it is that we're entertaining in our mind.
So good.
So we can always justify in our mind why we feel the way that we do, or why we should be angry, or why we should be frustrated, or why our in-laws or our parents suck, you know. But the problem is that doesn't really serve us in any way whatsoever, right? Jesus taught us to lead with love, right? And so we want to make sure that we're entertaining the right things, and you know, finding evidence for what we love or what we want or what we want to perpetuate or what we want to see grow in those relationships, versus, again, pointing out all the divides and the differences and so on and so forth, like sometimes is really easy to do.
Yeah, I love that thought. You know, I have to at times in different seasons, depending on how tired I am or how I'm entering into the holidays, or if we're going back to visit, if I catch myself with my family or with your family or with even friends for that matter, if I think, oh boy, I know they just can't wait until they're going to do or they're going to say this, man, I better check my thinking, right? Because you're going to find what you're looking for. We like to say you gravitate towards what you contemplate. So if I, in my mind, going, well, you know, they're going to say this when they come over, or you know, they're going to be doing that when they come over, guess what I'm going to probably find when they come over? And
Yeah.
so it's that place. And, you know, as we've talked with clients, I think that the household again and the extended family is such a place where we can choose to see the best,
Yeah.
believe the best, and speak the best. And as you said, Greg, it really begins right here in my mind. So those things that we're entertaining.
Yeah, it's all of these things really are about one thing, and that is kind of preparing your heart and preparing your mind in advance, and using just a little bit of intentionality, really being intentional. And you know, sometimes, let's face it, even with intentionality, it takes also intentionality and discipline of mind, not to engage in certain conversations or not to reply on certain things like you're talking about, to kind of eat the
yeah,
meat
yeah.
and spit out the bones, so to speak. And
Yeah.
we always like to end on a high note, for sure. Not that hopefully these have all been high notes, but in particular, I think the final thought that we had talked about, love, is just to invite new traditions. Or
Yep.
so, like, there's two things. I think one, to create new traditions
Yep.
is a great idea. But sometimes, you know, it's just leaning into and or adhering or complying and even welcoming their traditions. So it's a connecting point, right?
love
And I
it,
think that
yeah.
sometimes in the past I've been reluctant to those kind of things or resistant. Oh man, I don't want to do that. But it's just kind of a crappy attitude in general. Works better if we honor those things and lean into them.
It's great. So as you go into the holiday season or as you interact with family, what we want to encourage you to do is to put on a heart of love, a mind of love. I think for me right now in this season, I'm now an in-law, right? And
You have been for a minute.
I have been for a few years now, but with that, it's like I want to be the kind of in-law that my son-in-law wants to come over to. And so by starting new traditions as well, it is being able to let go of maybe some things that have been for the current season, I remember I wanted Courtney to be home for Christmas, and they live in Philadelphia.
No, they
Or I mean, they
don't.
live in Delaware. I always say Philadelphia. I don't even know where they live, but anyway, they live in Delaware. Oh my gosh, I don't know why I said that. Sorry, guys. But they did come in, and I found myself wanting to be that naggy in-law because I wanted my daughter home, and instead it was like, you know what? Christmas is just a day, and I'd rather have this celebration. And so whether you're the in-law, whether you are the daughter-in-law, the son-in-law, wherever you find yourself in whatever season, I think when God said not to do anything, don't do anything with grumbling,
Right.
To do all things without grumbling.
Right.
I want to make sure that I'm doing that not just as an internal mechanism, like I'm not going to grumble, I'm not going to grumble. I want to be a person of blessing.
Yeah.
I want to be a person that welcomes and brings about and fosters what I truly believe, and that is that family is forever. So as you go into this holiday season, how can you live in such a way that family is forever?
We used to talk to, in fact, still do talk to our kids about that
Yeah.
quite a bit. Just that, other friends may come and go, but family is forever, right? And so I think it's just really important for us, again, just to approach this holiday season not only with thanksgiving and gratitude in our heart, but with the understanding of the intentionality that it takes to make family forever. Family is forever,
Yeah.
but family's forever, and it's really, really good, and it's beautiful, and all those other things when we exercise some discipline, because sometimes we end up saying things to people in our family we would never say to anybody else.
Yeah.
And our family, we can't necessarily hold our family members accountable to that same standard, because they may say silly things, they may do silly things, right?
Right.
But we need to be forgiving, and we need to be mentally prepared for those kind of things and think, okay, what's the desired outcome? And what is it that we can do to celebrate them and this time together? And I think you'll find yourself, better equipped to make memories rather than madness during the Thanksgiving and the upcoming Christmas season.
Amen. All right, so guys, hey, leave your best practice of how you honor your in-laws, and we'll see you next week on the next Facebook Live. Thanks for joining us. Bye.